Welcome back, students. We'll be looking at section 1.6, practice for multiplying and dividing real numbers. Number 1, we have 6 times -5. Remember, the rule is if we have one positive and one negative, then our answer will still be negative. So we're going to have a -30. Number 2, we have a negative times a negative, which means we'll have a positive answer. So we have a +8. Number 3, we have a -8 times a 0. We learned the 0 rule says anything times 0 is 0. So our answer for number 3 will be 0. Number 4, -18 divided by 2. We have a negative and a positive, so our answer is going to be negative. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So our answer is -9. Number 5, we have 2 negatives. So negative divided by 28, negative 28 divided by -4 gives us a +7. Number 6, -45 divided by 0. We need to write it as a fraction so we can see which one of the scenarios it fits, whether that's the 0 over a number, which equals 0, because we can have 0 or nothing. We can have 0 of something. So remember, we could have 0 pieces of pizza left. But if the number is in the numerator, that is undefined because we can't have something of nothing. All right, so I'm going to write this as a fraction. Our first number is always the numerator. The denominator is always the second number. This fits this scenario here, so I know that my answer is undefined. I can't have -45 of nothing. Number 5. We have fractions that need to be multiplied. I also notice that they are both negative, so we are going to end up with a positive answer. 3 times 2 is 6. 8 times 3 is 24. I'm going to simplify. I'm going to factor out 6 of both of them. I end up with 1/4. Number 6, we have mixed fractions. We need to turn them into improper fractions. So we're going to use our tip of Texas for both of these. So I have 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 3 is 11, so we have 11/4 for our first fraction. Then we have 3 times 2 is 6, 6 plus 2 is 8, and we have -8/3 for our second fraction. 11 times -8 is -88, 4 times 3 is 12. I'm going to simplify both numbers by 4. And I end up with a -22/3. Number 7, we have division, so we need to keep it change. So I keep the -7/9, change the division to multiplication, and then I need to change my 1/3 to 3/1. It's reciprocal. And actually, that's not keep it change. It's keep it flip. All right, so -7/9 times 3/1. Now I have -7 times 3 is -21. 9 times 1 is 9. I'm going to reduce by 3 on both numbers. And I get -7/3. Number 8, we have decimals that we need to multiply here, so I'm going to write them out so that I can actually multiply them. I'm going to put the 1.23 on the top just because it's the larger number. All right, 4 times 3 is 12. Carry my 1. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. 4 times 1 is 4. put my placeholder. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Now I need to put down 2 placeholders. 0 times 3 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. And 0 times 1 is 0. Add my columns. I get 2. 9 plus 3 is 12. Carry the 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. Plus 2 is 7. And bring down the 1. And then also the 0. Count my places for the decimal. I have 4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And my decimal goes there. So my answer is 0.1722. But I'm not done. I need to look back and decide if it's a positive or a negative. We're multiplying two negatives, so my answer is actually going to be positive. Number 9. 32 times negative 1.23. Again, I'm going to put the second number as our first number just because it has more digits to multiply with. So I want to put the one with the least number of digits second. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 1 is 2. Put my placeholder. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 2 is 6. And 3 times 1 is 3. Add my 2 columns. I get 6. 4 plus 9 is 13. Carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 6 is 9. Bring down that 3. All right, count my placeholder, my decimal places. I have 2. So I'm going to go 1, 2. I have 39.36. Looking back at the original problem, I have a positive times a negative, so my answer is going to be negative. Number 10, I have negative 5.68 divided by 3.4. Remember, the first number always goes in the house, and the second number always goes outside. I also noticed that I have a number with a decimal on the outside, and we learned we need to turn that into a whole number by moving the decimal. So I'm going to move that the one time that we need. If I do that on that number, I also have to do that on this number. So I'm going to rewrite this as our new number to multiply with. So we have 34 into 5.68. We'll come back and deal with that negative at the end. I don't want it to confuse us as we're going through the division problem. 34 goes into 50, oh, I wrote that wrong. 56.8. I didn't move my decimal. Okay, so 34 into 56 goes one time. Subtract that and we get 22. I'm going to bring up my decimal, bring down my 8. 34 into 228 goes 6 times. That gives us 204 here. We end up with 24. I'm going to add a 0, bring that down. I end up with 240. 34 goes into 247 times, and I get 238 with 2 left over. Now we would need to continue on until we either discover this is a never-ending decimal or we end up with a final number. But you get the idea that you would just divide these as you normally would. So I'm going to stop here and say that our answer is roughly, that's why I'm going to do the squigglies, roughly 1.67. But looking back at the original, I had a negative and a positive number. So I know my answer is going to be negative. So this is what we're going to write as our answer. All right, looking at number 11. We have a bracket. We also have parentheses within that bracket. We need to deal with the negative 1 plus 3 before we do anything else. So I'm going to write negative 8. Negative 1 plus 3. We have two different signs, so we're going to take the difference, keep the sign of the larger. So that's going to give me a positive 2. Rewrite the rest of the problem. Now I have 2 times negative 2, which is a negative 4. A negative times a negative is a positive, so I'm going to end up with a positive 32. Number 12, we have 7.1 minus, and then in brackets, negative 3.3 times negative 4.9. So we need to do the multiplication first. 7.1 minus, inside here, those two numbers multiplied gives us 16.7. It's going to be a positive number because we have a negative times a negative. Now we have 7.1 minus 16.7. I'm going to do keep it, change, change. So 7.1 plus negative 16.17. When we take the difference of those two numbers, we end up with 9.07. The 16 is greater, so it's going to be negative 9.07. 13. We have 5 minus 10, and then in brackets we have negative 2 minus a negative 6. I'm going to do keep it, change, change on both of those. So we have 5 plus negative 10. Then we have negative 2 plus 6. Now we can actually solve what's inside of each of those. So 5 plus a negative 10, I'm going to take the difference, keep the sign of the larger. So I end up with negative 5. The second one, we have negative 2 plus 6. Again, I'm going to take the difference, keep the sign of the larger, so I end up with a positive 4. Negative 5 times 4 gives me a negative 20. Number 14, we have 5, and then in brackets right here, we're going to change it to keep it, change, change. I have negative 9 plus negative 15. Then I have 12 minus 7, which is 5. All right, I'm going to, let's see, go ahead and solve the negative 9 plus negative 15. So let me rewrite this part. Negative 9 plus negative 15 is negative 24. Now I need to solve the inside of this parentheses before I deal with this multiplying by 5 on the outside. And I'm going to do keep it, change, change. So I have negative 24, which stays. Change that minus to plus. Change my 5 to a negative 5. I end up with negative 24 plus negative 5, which is negative 29. Now I can do 5 times negative 29, which gives me a negative 145. And that's our answer. Number 15. I have several areas of multiplication in this problem. We're going to go ahead and do those. 6 times negative 2 gives us a negative 12. Negative 5 times negative 4 gives us a positive 20. 8 times 5 is a positive 40. And then 7 times 5 gives us 35. Now I'm going to do keep it, change, change on the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator. So I end up with negative 12 plus negative 20 over 40 plus negative 35. Negative 12 plus negative 20 is negative 32. 40 plus negative 35 gives us 5. And that is our answer, negative 32 over 5. Number 16. We have parentheses and exponents. So within each of these parentheses, we need to do the exponents before we deal with the subtraction. So I'm going to write that out. Let's see, we have negative 4. The negative 3 to the power of 3, remember that negative is outside of it's not in a parentheses with the 3 as far as like this with the exponent on the outside. So I know my number is going to be negative. And we're going to end up with negative 27 minus 5 within this particular parentheses. Same thing here with the negative 2 to the 4th power. We're going to end up with negative 16 minus 7. And then in the bottom, I'm just going to rewrite it. We haven't done anything here yet. All right, I'm going to go through and do keep it, change. So I have -4 times -27 plus -5. And then I have -16 plus -7. And I'm going to do the same thing in the denominator. I have 17 plus 1. All right, now I can go through and simplify those. -27 plus -5 is going to give me a -32. -16 plus -7 is going to give me a -23. In my denominator, I end up with 2 times 18, because 17 plus 1 is 18. All right, -4 times -32 is going to give me a 128. Plus, let's see, 3 times -23 is going to give me a -69. And in the bottom, I have 2 times 18, that's 36. I'm having to write on that problem a little bit. All right, 128 plus a -69 is 59. And we keep our 36. So 59 over 36 is our answer. Erase that so we can actually see 16 when we get there. So number 15, we have absolute value symbols. That's going to change things quite a bit. So we need to really pay close attention to that. -3 times -8 gives me a +24 within that absolute value sign. -3 times -8 gives me +24 again within the second absolute value sign. And then remember, whenever we bring numbers out, they are always positive. Now we have 24 minus 24, which is 0. Number 16. I have 2 minus 11 in one, and then I have a -4 times a -5 in the other. So in this first one, I'm going to do keep it, change, so we can see what we're actually doing. And then I'm just going to rewrite this one, because we haven't started solving yet. We were just adjusting. All right, 2 plus a -11 is going to give me a -9, because we take the difference, keep the sign of the larger. -4 times -5 is +20. Bring out my -9, it becomes positive, because whenever we bring out the absolute value, it becomes positive. The 20 comes out as positive, and our answer is 29. Now let's evaluate some expressions. So remember, when you evaluate the following expression, you're going to plug these values in for those variables. These are their true identities. The variable is just their disguise. So whenever we plug them in, make sure you plug them in with parentheses. So -2, our x value is -3, so times -3. Our y value is 4, so times 4. And then plus 4, our z value is times -5. -2 times -3 is a +6. 5 times 4 is 20. And then 4 times -5 is a -20. All right, I'm going to keep it, change here. 6 plus -20 plus -20. So 6 plus -20 is going to give me a -14, because we take the difference, keep the sign of the larger. -14 plus -20 gives us -34. Number 18. We're going to plug in our values. Make sure we use parentheses. So our x value is -3. The y value is 4. The z value is -5. Make sure you plug it in this way. Don't forget that that subtraction sign was part of the original problem. So when you must have that, and then our value of z is a -5. So you have to have both of those. 2 times z, so z is -5, plus our x value, which is a -3. -3 times 4 gives us a -12. 2 times -5 gives us a -10. I'm going to do keep it, change on the top, the numerator. So -12 plus 5 over -10 plus -3. -12 plus 5, we're going to take the difference and keep the sign of the larger number. So that gives us a -7. -10 plus -3 is a -13. But I want you to notice we have a negative over a negative. And remember, a fraction is division. And the rule for division is if you have two of the same sign, your number is positive. So because we have a -7 and a -13, our answer is actually going to be a positive 7/13. Number 19, we have fractions here, but before we worry about common denominators, we need to plug in our values and solve from that first. So I have -3/8 times the x value, which is a -3. I'm going to put it over 1 just so it's a fraction. Then I have -2/3 times the y value, which is a 4. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it over 1 so that it's a fraction. -3 times -3 is a positive 9. 8 times 1 is 8. Then I have a -2 times 4, which is a -8. And 3 times 1, which is a 3. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do keep it, change. So I have 9/8 plus 8/3. Now I need to get our common denominator. So I think we're going to go with 24. 9/8 times 3/3. That would give us a 24 in the denominator. And then 8/3 times 8/8 would give us 24 in that denominator. So 9 times 3 is 27. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 8 is 64. And then 3 times 8 is 24. Add those together and we get 91/24. And that's our answer. Now let's look at translating words and phrases. So the sum of -18 and -4 divided by the product of 2 and -8. One thing that I notice is I have a comma here and then I have divided by. That comma indicates to me that what's before it is going to be in the top of that fraction, because remember, fractions are division. And then what's after that comma is going to be in the denominator, the bottom of that fraction. So the sum of -18 and -4, sum tells me I'm going to be adding those two numbers. So I have -18 plus -4, comma, so I'm going to put my division sign, my fraction bar, divided by the product. Product is multiplication, so the product of 2 and -8. So that means I'm multiplying 2 and -8. And that's my answer. Some of the problems will want you to go ahead and solve from there, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. I just want to help you translate, and then you can solve them. The quotient of -25 and the sum of 8 and 3. Quotient tells me division, which I'm going to have a fraction. So it's going to be the quotient of -25, and that word "and" right here indicates I'm going to switch to the bottom of the fraction. I don't have a comma. That is my comma in this one because we only have one item in the top. So we have -25 over the sum of 8 and -3. So we're going to add 8 and -3. And that's our answer for number 18. Number 19, the product, which is multiplication, of 0.5 and 1.2, comma, divided by. So again, that tells me I have a fraction. The numerator of that fraction is going to be the 0.5 times 1.2 over what's after the comma. So divided by negative 0.4, negative 0.4. Number 20. 2/3 decreased by negative 1/3 divided by 1/5. So I have a fraction. In the top, I have 2/3 decreased by a negative 1/3. So 2/3 decreased by a negative 1/3. In the denominator, I have divided by 1/5. At the end of the video, I'll show you how to actually solve this problem because I believe you have one like this in your homework, quiz, or test, one of those. Number 21. The product of negative 9 and a number is 36. I notice I have the word is, so I know I have an equation now, not an expression. So I'm going to have an equal sign. The product of negative 9 and a number, that tells me I'm going to be multiplying them. So that's negative 9 and some number. We don't know what, so I'm going to give it a variable, is 36. Number 22, the quotient of 15 and a number is negative 5. Quotient tells me division. So 15 and tells me, now we're moving down to the denominator, a number. We don't know what number, so we're going to give it a variable, is negative 5. And that's how you would translate 22. All right, now let's solve number 20 so that you have an example of how to solve this type of problem. Yeah, I want to make sure I copied it down correctly. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do keep it, change so we can get rid of those negatives. So I have 2/3 plus 1/3 over 1/5. All right, remember the way to cancel as a fraction is to multiply it by its reciprocal. That's one way. But the problem we have here is we have different denominators. So we need to pick a number that's going to cancel out all of those denominators. 3 and 5 are factors of 15. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to multiply the top by 15 over 1. I'm also going to multiply the bottom by 15 over 1 because whatever I multiply the top by, I need to do the denominator as well. 15 times 2 is 30. 1 times 3 is 3. 15 times 1 is 15. 1 times 3 is 3. 15 times 1 is 15, and then 1 times 5 is 5. We still have fractions within fractions, but watch what happens now. 30 divided by 3 is 10. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. So we're back to just a normal fraction that we know how to solve. 10 plus 5 is 15 over 3. Now we just simplify that. 15 divided by 3 is 5. I forgot my equal sign. And that is our answer. All right, let's read our Bible verse. Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand." Matthew 12:25. All right, guys, hope you're having a great day. See you in the next video. Bye.